All right, let's talk about blockchain. If you've ever heard that word and immediately felt like it's way too technical or complicated, you're in the right spot. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this whole thing and show you that at its heart, it's really just a powerful new way to think about information in our digital world. I mean, think about it for a second. Online, you can copy and paste just about anything. So, how do we actually know if a digital file is the original? How can we be sure a transaction or a piece of art or even a vote is authentic and hasn't been secretly changed? This is the fundamental problem of digital trust. And that, right there, that's the whole reason blockchain was even invented. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at why we need this digital trust in the first place. Then, we'll get into the core idea of blockchain itself. After that, we'll see how it actually works and how everyone on the network agrees on what's true. Then, we'll zoom out beyond just crypto, and finally, we'll look at the future, both the good and the bad. Let's get into it. So, let's kick things off with the why. Why did we need a completely new technology for this? Well, it all comes down to how we've always handled our most important information. Okay, so check out this comparison. On one side, you've got your traditional database. Think of a bank, right? It's all centralized, one company is in control, they can technically modify the records, and you pretty much just have to trust them. But then, on the other side, you have blockchain. It's the total opposite. No single person is in charge, the records are basically set in stone, and that trust, it's spread out across everyone on the network. All right, so let's get into the core idea. And to do that, I want you to forget all the complicated tech jargon for a minute. Just picture this, a shared digital public notebook. Yeah, I know, that's the fancy formal definition. But let's stick with our notebook idea. A blockchain is really just a special kind of notebook where every single person in a group has their own identical copy. And here's the cool part. Whenever someone writes a new entry on a page, it just magically appears in everyone else's notebook at the exact same time. So what makes this notebook so powerful? Well, it comes down to four key things. First, it's decentralized. There's no single boss. Second, it's immutable, which is just a fancy way of saying once something is written down, you can't go back and erase it. It's permanent. Third, it's transparent. Everybody in the group can read all the entries. And last but not least, it's secure. Think of modern cryptography as this, unbreakable, tamper-proof seal on every single page.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but how does anything actually get written into this magic notebook, right? How does a new entry, a new transaction get added to a page?
Well, it all starts when someone wants to add an entry. That transaction gets bundled up with a bunch of others onto a new page, and in the blockchain world, we call that page a block. Then, this new block is broadcast to everyone on the network. The whole group takes a look, they all check it to make sure it's valid, and once they agree, bam, it's permanently added to the notebook, creating a brand new link in the chain of pages. Now, the secret sauce that holds all this together is something called a hash. Just think of it as a unique digital fingerprint. Now, here's the genius part. Every new block doesn't just have its own fingerprint. It also contains the fingerprint of the block that came right before it. That's what literally creates the chain. So if anyone tried to go back and secretly change something on an old page, its fingerprint would change, which would instantly break the link to the next page, and the next, and the next. The whole chain would shatter, and everyone would know. It makes tampering practically impossible.
Okay, but wait a minute. I know what you're thinking. If there's no boss, who decides when to add a new page? How on earth does this giant distributed group of strangers all agree on what's valid? Well, this is where the really cool concept of consensus comes in. A consensus mechanism is it's just the rule book for the notebook. That's it. It's the official process that the entire network agrees to follow to make sure everyone's copy of the notebook stays perfectly in sync and, to keep everybody honest. Now, the two big ones you'll always hear about are proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work, that's what Bitcoin uses, is basically a massive race. Powerful computers all over the world compete to solve an incredibly hard math puzzle. The winner gets to add the next block. It's super secure, but it uses a ton of energy. Proof of stake, which networks like Ethereum now use, is a whole different game. Here, participants lock up their own crypto as collateral. They have skin in the game. And for doing so, they get a chance to be chosen to validate the next block. It's way, way more energy efficient. Now, look, it's easy to just think Bitcoin when you hear blockchain. And that's where it all started, for sure. But the real revolution, the thing that unlocked its true potential, was an idea called the smart contract.
So, what is a smart contract? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a super smart vending machine. It's a contract, yeah, but its terms are written in computer code, and it lives right on the blockchain. It's just a simple if then program. If you put in the correct amount of money, then the machine automatically gives you your soda. There's no cashier, no middleman needed. The rules are baked right into the code, and it just works. And this simple idea, it blows the doors wide open for what's possible. We're talking about financial services with no banks in the middle. We're talking about NFTs, which are just a way to prove you own one-of-a-kind digital thing. We're talking about tracking a product from a factory all the way to your doorstep with total transparency. It could even be used for things like secure medical records or tamper-proof voting systems. The possibilities are huge. So as we start to pull all this together, it's really important to have a balanced view. Blockchain is an incredibly promising technology, for sure, but it is not a silver bullet. It's got its own set of pretty big challenges. On the one hand, the promise is massive. It directly tackles that digital trust problem we started with. It gives us enhanced security and radical transparency because the records are shared and incredibly hard to cheat. And by cutting out middlemen, it has the potential to make tons of things cheaper, faster, and more efficient.
But on the other hand, there are real hurdles. Scalability is a big one. Many blockchains are just really slow. They can't handle the transaction volume of something like Visa, not yet anyway. The energy consumption of proof-of-work systems is a serious environmental concern. And of course, governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to regulate this stuff. And let's be honest, it's still pretty complicated for the average person to use, which is a major roadblock to adoption.
And I think this quote just captures it perfectly. At the end of the day, the technology itself, the blocks, the chains, the hashes, it's fascinating. But the true innovation is what it all enables, a completely new framework for us to establish trust in a digital world, without needing a big central authority to vouch for everything. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Are we looking at the fundamental building blocks of a new, more transparent and decentralized internet? Or is this an incredibly powerful solution that's still searching for that one killer problem it can solve for everyone? The truth is, nobody knows for sure. The answer is still being written, one block at a time.